Hey everybody, welcome to the live stream. I'm Father Roderick. It is time for the weekly recording of my podcast, The Break. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about. Star Wars fans. Why Star Wars fans are the best fans in the world, contrary to what some of you may actually sometimes experience or think. We'll talk about Mark Hamill talking about recasting the role of Luke Skywalker. What's that all about? I'm going to review a couple of new trailers of upcoming movies, among which the new Transformers movie, and we'll watch the trailer for Barbie. And what else? We're going to talk about Parish renovation, which is a big thing currently in the Catholic Church. You know, we are clearly in dire straits, at least in the Western part of the world. So how does the church transform itself to become more relevant? And is that even happening? And, you know, what are the pitfalls of that? And what are the best practices? I'm going to talk about that. Let's see what else. I want to talk about old tech and the kind of the problem that I'm confronted with when it comes to trying to keep my older tech devices relevant and working fine, and how updating software. There's just a whole discussion to be had, I think, about old tech, and I think we all have like old phones and other technology that was top notch just a few years ago, and now it's just gathering dust, and it's a problem for us because it costs money, but it's also a problem for the environment. So that's something I want to talk about. And then there is a very cool Lego set that is, I'm not sure if it's already available, but it will be soon. And it is a very, very cool set, and it totally passed under the radar for many people. So I want to give you a sneak preview of what that Lego set looks like. So, hey Margot, hey Steven, good to see you in the chat. I'm going to put on my headphones and then we're going to get going. Let's see, I've got my, my audio working. Let's see if I've got my, where did my trailers go? Let's put maybe I moved those accidentally. Oh, here they are. No, that's not the right one. Wait. Where is that window with all my trailers that I had put in place? It's this one. Oh, I see what's happening. Yeah. It's because it's in full screen mode. Hey, Maria. Hey, Lauren. Hey, Bobby. Good to see you all. Yeah, I think we're good to go. All right, let me put this here so I can reach it. That one goes there. I'll put my show notes right underneath my the window where I can see what you all see. Can I make this smaller? No, I think this is actually the only size. So while you're at it, while I'm getting ready, why not give this stream a thumbs up? Always helps. And thanks to those of you that have already done so. Okay. These are my notes. All right. Shall we give it a try? Hey, Mia. You didn't think you would ever find a priest that watches anime and streams on YouTube. Very cool. All right. Well, great to have you in the chat. So glad to see you live here. But I'm not even the only one. I'm not even the only priest. All right. Let's get going. Hey everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of The Break. I am Father Roderick, your podcasting, geeky, Star Wars loving priest / nerd / geek. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. What's that news about recasting Luke Skywalker? And so much else we need to address in this episode. As always, this show is brought to you thanks to my wonderful community of patrons or Patreon supporters. I'm just tempted to call them my patron saints, because they really allow me to do this holy work. So a shout out to two of them that have recently upped their tier. I want to thank Morton and John specifically for upping their pledge. If you want to join this wonderful community of patrons and help me to do this kind of work, and I can really use your help, then by all means take a look at patreon.com/Father Roderick.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
We need to talk about Star Wars fans, and why Star Wars fans, despite what's going on in the fan universe right now, are still, I think, the best fans in the world. This is not a theory. This is something I have experienced time and again. Now, as you are aware, undoubtedly, a lot of the big franchises, be it Marvel or everything that Disney does. Actually, Disney also does Marvel and does Star Wars. So Star Trek, like you name it, even video game fan bases, often can get very sour when there are new releases, and there's a lot of online criticism and a lot of fighting going on, and a lot of entitlement of fans. And for some, that has created the impression that it's no longer worth being a fan. It's too bitter, it's too poisoned, it's too toxic. And I can understand if you only see those fans online, because as we know, the world that we see and experience online is not the real world. It is a segment, it is a version of the real world, because we're dealing mostly with real people, and then some GPT bots that are pretending to be real people. But there is a huge difference between the tone of voice in the online fan debate about basically any big franchise and the experience of meeting fans in real life. I have yet to experience one fan event in real life where you experience that kind of toxicity. I have just never seen it. And I go to fan events all the time. I go to big fantasy fairs and festivals. I go to Comic-Cons in the Netherlands. I go to Star Wars celebrations and conventions. And when I go to these meetings, everybody is so amazing, so lovely, so motivated to be there, and so full of excitement about the franchise that they're a fan of. One of my most recent experiences was the big fan convention around Star Wars in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. As you may have heard, I was asked to be a panel host during this Echo-based charity con, and I had been a guest of that same convention before the pandemic, so that is, I think, in 2000, was it in 2019? Anyway, and back then I was just a guest, so I was interviewed about my love for Star Wars on stage, and then this year they asked me back, but instead of being the person being interviewed, I would be the person who would interview actors from Star Wars. And of course I said yes. I mean, isn't that amazing to meet the original actors that portrayed Mon Mothma and Wedge Antilles and General Crix Medine and Bonnie Peace, who played Aunt Beru in the prequels and also in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and Duncan Roy, who plays what's his name, the pal of Cassian Andor in Andor, and also was in Rogue One. Anyway, of course, I wanted to do that, and I had a blast. It was the best day of the year as a Star Wars fan. But what also impressed me so much is not only are the actors lovely and extremely kind and engaged and really wanting the fans to have a great experience, but also the fans were amazing towards the actors. And Caroline who plays Mon Mothma in Return of the Jedi, her role was 40 years ago. She said that she only filmed for one day, and that was her only work. The only work that she ever did in Star Wars. I think if she'd been involved in that movie today, she'd probably feature in a lot of television series as well. But she is more than 90 years old, and she said that she was just so blown away by the kindness and the warmth that she experienced, as in her opinion, just a very, very small actress who is in Star Wars, and yet 40 years later, she is being treated as royalty. And all the actors told me that they had that same experience, that they loved being among these Dutch Star Wars fans. And it's not really something that we in Holland are very well known of. The Dutch are usually very direct. We tend to be a bit more kind of calm. We're not, compared to, for instance, an American audience during a convention, during the Star Wars celebration, you got all that yelling and cheering, and people are just like exploding with outward-facing enthusiasm. The Dutch are usually a lot more reserved. But they said it's just the warmth of the people and the way they are interested in us and talk with us. And that is exactly what I also experienced as a host of these panels. You feel the engagement of the public, of the audience. At one point, I had to give away some swag during the first panel with the three actors from Return of the Jedi. And I've never done that before. I'm not very good at it. But of course, we had like 2 or 3 items, and we had a whole theater full of people, like a couple of hundred people. And so I was thinking, well, how can we do this? Are we just pick a number between 1 and 200? That's going to be such a hassle, and it's not very fun. And then right before I went on stage, I was talking to one of the organizers, and she said, hey, well, what if we do something like with Star Wars impressions? And I was like, yes, that's it. That's what we're going to do. So before we started the Q&A with the audience, so the whole session was about 45 minutes, 50 minutes. And so after about half an hour, I made a break. And I said, now, if you have a question, please come down. We only have one microphone. But before that, I want to invite you, if you want to have this swag, do your best Star Wars impression. And then I thought that nobody would dare to do that, make a fool of yourself in front of a big audience. However, there was a whole lineup of, 6, 7 people, and they did amazing impressions. There's this one guy who did the R2-D2 scream, when he's hit in A New Hope, when he's fired upon by the Jawas and he topples over. There's this, I can't do it. That guy did the perfect imitation of that. I was like, how does that sound come from you? And there was another guy who did the Emperor and some other stuff. There was a Wookiee with Chewbacca, which was extremely good impersonation as well. And I think it was just another sign of the level of confidence that these fans had among each other. Felt totally at ease to do these impressions. And the same happened also during the second panel that I hosted. There was another panel going on in the theater next to us. That was about The Mandalorian. So we didn't have a full theater, but still had probably more than 100 people. And then just the kind of questions that people asked. I had to do another handout of swag, and I didn't want to do impressions because the whole session, the whole panel, was more serious than the first one. The Return of the Jedi panel were all people from the UK, lots of jokes and clearly super experienced actors when it comes to appearing at these conventions. In this case, Bonnie, who is from Australia, now lives in Portugal. I don't think she has been at many conventions before. She's currently not doing much acting as it is. And then we also had Duncan, for who I think these kind of conventions are also relatively new, and who is kind of he's from Scotland. He's a pretty serious guy. He had some very, very interesting remarks and just ponderings, and it's like, wow, okay, I never expected a Star Wars panel to go this deep. So at the end of that first round of questions, where I was the interviewer, I felt like, no, we cannot do impressions. That's not going to work. That's just too over the top. It doesn't match the vibe in the room. What else can we do? And then I remember at one point, I asked the two actors, the two guests, if they would be in for future sequels. You know, is Duncan going to be in Andor season 2? I think he is, by the way. And if Bonnie would be in for Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2. And then I thought, well, maybe let's ask the audience to pitch ideas for new television series. And again, I did not expect many people to react to that because it was kind of an off-the-cuff idea, and usually you need some time to think about this. But man, was I surprised to get so many incredible suggestions for a Star Wars series. There were some alternate history versions, like what show us the family life of Luke and Beru and Owen if they hadn't been attacked by the stormtroopers. If maybe they're still alive, maybe it was all like a switcheroo and they are still there somewhere. Can we do like a reboot of that? What else was there? There was just, it was so much fun. It was so much laughter, and it was almost impossible to pick a winner because all those ideas were amazing. And again, I was so surprised to see how much, just to see the involvement of the fans, and how much they were not just there as you know, crazy Star Wars fans, but they really wanted to be involved in the conversation. Another thing that struck me was to see so many people with either in a wheelchair or otherwise on the spectrum, and all sorts of fans. For it really didn't matter if you were cosplaying or if you were just a collector or if you were a kid. There was just a vibe where everybody accepted everyone. It was wonderful to see some of the kids learning lightsaber sword fighting with adult trainers, and then to see that interaction between these kids and these adults, and it made those kids feel super special. And I don't know, it was the entire day after I went home, I was just buzzing from enthusiasm, and I was so proud of my Star Wars fan community. And I'm thinking, this is so different from what you often see online, where Star Wars fans are hating on each other because you know, this or that isn't exactly what they want it to be, or they have a different wish list, and then evil Kathleen Kennedy just completely destroys Star Wars, etc., etc. There's none of that type of talk on conventions like that. So if you ever are a bit skeptical about fans, or maybe you have the impression that the whole Star Wars world is going downhill, and no, do me a favor, go to one of those local conventions and just mingle with the crowd, and you see for yourself that what people sometimes say online and what they yell at each other, or what some people say, is not representative for the average Star Wars fan. Most people are there just because they love those stories. They love these actors, and they just want to celebrate the stories that they love and celebrate the friendship and the common language that they have with the fans. It was a fantastic day. I love my Star Wars fans.
How do you not like movies?
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
We need to talk about this talk about recasting the role of Luke Skywalker. That was actually a news topic this past week. Now, hold on to your horses. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to happen. But this was part of a conversation with Mark Hamill, who, of course, we have seen in the Star Wars sequels, and who died and appeared in The Rise of Skywalker as a Force ghost. Now that we know for sure that we're going to have another story that is based on the efforts of Rey, the character of Rey, to rebuild a new Jedi Order. That is actually what she was asked to do. Wasn't it Luke who gave her that quest? Anyway, it's something that she wants to do. She wants to bring the Jedi back. And of course, that's probably not going to be as easy as it seems. And so there have been questions asked to Mark Hamill, especially knowing that he had already appeared as a younger version of himself, thanks to the magic of CGI in the Book of Boba Fett and in The Mandalorian Season 2 towards the end. Would you be in for an extended role in future Jedi-based stories? What if there are going to be new movies, for instance, telling the stories of Luke Skywalker right after Return of the Jedi? Some people are speculating, and maybe it's just fan fiction, but what if Disney would allow a series of movies showing more than just what we saw in the flashback of him training Kylo Ren, but what if we get a whole series about Luke Skywalker creating his Jedi Academy, and then the whole, how Luke Skywalker went from this very serene, great Jedi at the end of Return of the Jedi, fully at peace with his role as a Jedi, and of course having saved the galaxy. How does he go from that to the bitter, cynical guy that we see at the end of the Force Awakens, and then who we see is just acting like a crazy old man in The Last Jedi? He is that crazy old man that Uncle Owen, that's how Uncle Owen qualified Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's just this crazy old man. Well, Luke Skywalker has become that crazy old man. How did that happen? What if we do a number of movies just about that? And with CGI, we know that technically it would be possible to just create a motion capture performance. Nowadays, they can do like real-time face replacement on actors. And Mark Hamill actually said, at first he said, so the first question was, are you involved in this movie about Rey trying to recreate the Jedi Order or rebuild the Jedi Order? Are you going to be in there as a Force ghost? And then his first reply obviously was, well, you know what? That's all protected by NDAs. If I was involved, I wouldn't be able to talk about. If I wasn't involved, I could also not talk about it. And then after a bit of prodding, they asked him more in general, so would you be in for, taking or playing a role in future stories about Luke Skywalker, but as a younger version of yourself? And then he said, yeah, I know I did that for the television series, but that's not cheap. It would be probably much better to just recast a role, get a younger actor to play my character. That's how that became a hot topic in the news. And Star Wars fans immediately were like, either they were like, yeah, cool, let's do that. That was a very small minority. And most fans were like, no, please, no, don't do what you did with Solo, recasting the role of Han Solo. Actually, Kathleen Kennedy officially said, we're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to recast these very famous characters with new actors. They tried that with Solo, and even though I think the end result was a very good, enjoyable movie, but having another actor take over the role of Han Solo, and so is it Han or Han? Whatever, both are good. So playing Han Solo, it was jarring. He did well, but it just wasn't the same Han Solo, and so I'm already upset when I see alternate versions of the Avengers. Remember that after the last Avengers movie came out, that there was this video game, and I still play it on Game Pass Ultimate, and it's a fine game, and you see all these these Avengers, but they look totally different. They sound different, and it's like, man, I'm playing like an alternate universe version of these characters, and it's not the same. It's absolutely not the same. I cannot take away the memory that I have and the kind of the perceived bond that I have with the original actors that played these characters. So I didn't like the recasting, even though that was just a video game. I was super upset when they had to obviously recast Dumbledore because the original actor died, and they had to bring in a completely new actor with a very different interpretation of Dumbledore. I didn't think that he even studied the work of his predecessor. And so that was so jarring as well. I am less upset with what they are currently doing with Andor, where they obviously had recast the role of Mon Mothma. And one of the things that I particularly appreciate is that the newer actress who plays Mon Mothma has studied the performance of Catherine. I need to be a bit more polite and call her by her last name as well. Caroline, I should say, Caroline Blackiston. She said that there was a certain sadness in the way that she talked about many Bothans have died to bring us these plans. And she says, I felt that there was this whole backstory that was implied that nobody knew at the time when they were filming Return of the Jedi, but now with these new scripts of Andor, I can see how that one performance of that actress kind of matched the backstory that we're creating now. So that helped me to give voice to this younger version of Mon Mothma. And I think they even look alike. Caroline said it. She said, when I first saw this new actress playing my role, she met the actress even without knowing that she had been cast as Mon Mothma, I think. And she's like, she looks like me when I was young. And so that works for me. But because there is a huge time gap between the event, well, actually not that much time, but there is some time difference between the events of Andor and then the beginning and then Return of the Jedi. I think Return of the Jedi is at 6 years after A New Hope. I'm not sure about the timeline, but anyway, it's different enough. With Luke Skywalker, I think I would be very upset if they, for instance, would do like post-Return of the Jedi stories, or even something like a video game, and they would have another actor playing Luke Skywalker. It has to be Mark Hamill. But I can also see that you cannot do like full feature-length movies with that CGI technology. Probably also because it would reveal the flaws of that technology. You can do it, and I think they really pushed the limits with the Book of Boba Fett, and it was very convincing. However, you do remember that the voice, even though it sounded like Mark Hamill as he sounded in Return of the Jedi, his intonation, the way he said his lines felt a bit flat. And the reason was that the algorithm that they used to recreate Mark Hamill's voice was based on audiobook readings by Mark Hamill. And of course, if you read an audiobook, it's a very different way of different intonation, different cadence than if you would act and you have to project yourself. And so that is why that voice, even though it sounds identical to Mark Hamill, it gets so close, there is something still a little bit off there. And I think if you would do this with like big, like dramatic roles, I don't think it would work. Tarkin is another good example. In Rogue One, of course, they did the CGI version of Tarkin. And even though he looked like the original actor and sounded like him, you could still see that it was computer generated. And that was, of course, at the very beginning of this they were starting to experiment with this technology. Leia at the end of Rogue One also looked a bit weird and a bit not, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I mean, I accept it totally because of the story. It was just cool to see these characters. You cannot tell that prequel story to A New Hope without having Tarkin, without even having Leia. And so I'm fine with it, but it wasn't perfect. So I agree with Mark Hamill that, just doing a CGI younger version of him, it's probably not a good idea. But then to suggest that we have to recast his role, No. And I think something else he said in the interview is, well, I think we're kind of done with these stories about Luke Skywalker. And there was, yes, I think we're done. I think we've had our share of, of course, I want to see Mark Hamill as a Force ghost in the movie about Rey. I think you have to. In every sequel to A New Hope, you have Alec Guinness playing the Force ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And because Star Wars rhymes, you have these recurring, this cyclical storytelling, it totally would be fitting if Mark Hamill would appear as a Force ghost. Just maybe not as prominent as he did in The Rise of Skywalker. I don't think there's any need for that. However, there is one situation, and correct me if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments if you agree with me. There's one exception to this rule. In fact, the role of Luke Skywalker already has been recast. And we've just seen it. In the series Obi-Wan Kenobi, we see a child actor playing young Luke Skywalker. And we see him getting in trouble. We see his parents calling him as like, Luke, Luke. Bonnie told me during the panel interview that was actually done on purpose. The two parents calling Luke, because that's exactly what you hear in A New Hope, where Aunt Beru is calling for Luke, Luke, and she kind of channeled that during the television series. So we see this child actor taking on the role of Luke Skywalker, and because that entire first season of Obi-Wan Kenobi was focused on the character of Leia, we only see the boy in very, very short scenes. I was a bit surprised by the choice of the child actor, because he didn't remind me of the performance of Mark Hamill. Whereas with Leia, I think the young actress who played young Leia very much had that same, same spirit as Carrie Fisher. It was a very good match. With Luke Skywalker, I was less convinced. However, I can totally see that if they would ever do a sequel to Obi-Wan Kenobi, they, of course, could skip a couple of years and then pick a new actor, because, of course, these children, they grow up very fast. If you see, I just recently saw an interview with the young actress who played the younger version of Leia, and she's already like 3 years older than she was when she played that. So they probably will have to recast the role of Luke Skywalker anyway, but they could maybe switch to a Luke Skywalker as a teenager. He's supposed to be still a teenager when we first see him in A New Hope, but seriously, he's in his 20s. I think Mark Hamill was, or maybe he was a little bit younger, but they could go to, I don't know, the age of 14, 15, something like that. Definitely older than the Luke Skywalker we see in the first season of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And then they could recast it and maybe just try to find an actor who kind of bridges the gap between the very young Luke Skywalker and that particular child actor, and then young Mark Hamill. I can see that happen. And I think that if they ever do a sequel to Obi-Wan Kenobi season 1, it's got to focus on Luke Skywalker. And it's a story that if it remains untold, I would say that's a missed opportunity. Again, because Star Wars rhymes, and you cannot focus on just one of the two twins and then not do Luke Skywalker in a second season. I know, and I understand that they wanted to do Leia because we haven't seen Alderaan and we haven't seen her relationship with her parents. So obviously that was a very good, wise decision to focus on Leia, not on Luke. But now I feel like it's a shame if we will never get to see this gap filled in between the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi season 1 and then Rogue One or A New Hope. That is what I think. So what would you think if they would recast Luke Skywalker? Are you fine with the CGI replacement? What do you think about another season of Obi-Wan Kenobi? Would you be interested in that? Let me know. And also, let Disney know. Let's raise our voices as Star Wars fans, because if we don't, they don't know that we actually want something. So it's up to us. All right, let's move over to a new trailer for an action movie in a series that I actually really never cared about. I'm talking about Transformers. And the Michael Bay movies, I tried to watch the first one, and I didn't really care for it. But that was still my problem, because I skipped that whole time period where the Transformers became such a thing. As you know, I've been in seminary for 10 years. And the first 5 of them, I did not go to the movies. I did not watch any television. So for 5 years, there is a dark hole in my experience as a geek. I totally missed out on Nintendo, like the entire Nintendo craze with Mario. And I was in seminary. I didn't play video games. I didn't have well, I did have a computer, but no games. And so that is a gap, but also this whole, the Teenage Turtle Ninja, Teenage Nerdle Ninjas, the Teenage Turtle Ninjas. I totally missed out on that as well. And I completely missed the whole Transformers craze. So when the first movie came out, I went to see it in theaters, and I actually quite liked it. It was like, wow, the special effects especially are very cool. I really hated the sexist approach of women in that series. I thought it was just cringe, pure cringe. Just for that, I totally disliked the way Michael Bay handled those movies. And then I went to see the second movie, Transformers movie, thinking, well, maybe they can course correct a little bit, and it was so bad. I remember falling asleep. I watched it in theaters in the United States, in Atlanta. It was like 3 hours long, and I just couldn't keep my eyes open. Oh, it was so mind-numbing. And then I don't think I watched the third and the fourth. And there was this one about the Yellow Beetle, and I saw that one, and that was the first one where I thought, hey, they're going in a different direction. This is a much more human story. I kind of like this. And so the Bumblebee, yeah, we're talking about Bumblebee. I really enjoyed Bumblebee. Now, after even more years, there is another Transformers movie that's about to come out. The trailer is already online, so I'm going to watch it with you. I haven't seen it yet. And Michael Bay is no longer directing. Thank the maker. So he is still, I think, an executive producer, or maybe a producer, but he's no longer at the helm. So I actually have a bit of hope that, Transformers may be going in the right direction. I don't know. Let's take a look at the trailer, and I'll tell you what I think. Here we go. There is the trailer. It starts now.
For centuries, our kind has stayed hidden on Earth.
I like that.
But darkness has found us again.
That looks cool.
Prime. This is about the fate of all living things.
A Transformer
Unicron
gorilla.
is coming.
Big celestial machine. Oh, 1994. Oh, that's cool. They kept the sounds. Oh, there we go.
Back up. Oh, I thought we were boys.
You want it? Come and get it.
You brought a human here?
I'm nobody. I ain't even seen nothing. I'm not even seeing anything right now.
Think you holding late and you haven't met the age.
That's coming out this month. Cool.
This is not our war.
Optimus, we must trust each other to protect the home we all share.
Ha, that's so cool.
How big can this guy be?
He eats planets. So, like, way bigger than a planet.
Sure, why not? Transformer that eats planets.
In the end, everything you cared for will be consumed.
Maybe there's another way to save our home.
never faced anything like this. Let them come.
Big space machine. Explosions. Slow motion action. And lots and lots and lots of CGI. Feels like classic Transformers. The Rise of the Beasts.
Yo, Noah, take the wheel.
June 9th. That's next week. All right. Okay. What do I think of this? Wait a minute. That's not... What is that? That is The Late Show. They're not even on today. Rise of the Beasts. If I only go with the trailer, I'm thinking this looks just like all the other Transformers movies. So, but it's a trailer, of course, and it wants to cater to the audience that loves the movies as they are so far. So I'm not sure if this trailer convinces me to go watch the movie. I have to say, it looks a bit cleaner. It's easier to understand what's going on. One of the things that I disliked of the previous Transformers movies is that for sometimes like 10 minutes, you only see these machines transforming and fighting, and it would be very fast cut in editing. And it was just too much, and it was like either it was completely off or it was completely on. There was very little room for subtlety in those movies. This trailer kind of looks like that. It's over the top. It features a lot of tropes. So I'm not sure what to think of it. I mean, I like the way it looks. It's obviously very cool. It has the classic ingredients, but this trailer has not convinced me that this is any better than the previous movies. Let me know what you think. Are you looking forward to this movie or not? The jury is out when it comes to me. Let's watch another trailer. This time for a movie that I am not necessarily looking forward to, but I am intrigued by it because it's such a strange franchise. Of course, I'm talking about the Barbie movie. When the first trailer for the Barbie movie came out, I thought it was brilliant. It had all these subtle references to big movie tentpoles like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it was a really good teaser. It made me curious, what are they going to do with this story? It's not going to be another, Pixar Toy Story movie with just Barbies in there or Kens. It's got to go deeper than that. They've got some excellent actors who are playing the roles of Barbie and Ken. And I feel that maybe this is the time that they can pull up something really original and something that goes beyond what we all expect. We're about to find out because I have not watched the trailer yet, the official full trailer for the Barbie movie, but I want to take a look at it with you as we speak. So here we go. Oh my gosh. I have to say, this looks very promising. It feels like a Barbie version of Enchanted. It's the same premise. You've got this fairy tale world with this princess, and she's destined to live forever. Happily ever after? And then she ends up in our world, and it turns out that's a lot harder to navigate than a fairy tale world. And then to ask the wrong question inside that universe, like this Barbie world is a bit like the Truman Show, the world of Truman, right? Where everything is perfect and supposed to be perfect. You're not supposed to talk about stuff that takes the viewers out of that fantasy world. And then she addresses the topic of mortality. And that kind of breaks the fabric of that Barbie world, and she maybe is even expelled. It's like Eve eating from the tree of wisdom, and then it kind of breaks the reality they're in, and they're expelled from the Garden of Eden, and they end up in this broken world. And it feels like that's what this movie is doing. Another premise that this reminds me of is Pleasantville, one of my all-time favorite movies, where two characters go into this black and white world of the 50s television shows where everything seems perfect, and then they break that world by introducing color and new ideas. And at first there's a lot of resistance, but ultimately that entire world is transformed into the kind of broken but still very colorful world that we live in. I love stories like that. It's because it's in a mirror the situation that we are in. We like to dwell in these fictional worlds where it's escapism, and we don't want these franchises and these movies and these stories to take us back to reality because we don't really like reality as it is. But it's all ultimately about embracing reality and learning from these fictional worlds the tools, or getting from these fictional stories the tools that we need to navigate real life. And so if escapism is just that, then it becomes literally something that hampers our real life. But stories are never meant to replace reality. They are here to enhance reality and to help us cope with reality. And so that's kind of the type of subject matter that I see in this trailer. I'm impressed visually. I love it already. It's so cool to see that juxtaposition. I didn't really know that they were going with these Barbie characters into the real world. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. and I don't know. I can't wait to see it. Let me know what you think. It feels like something, what they said in the trailer: if you love Barbie, this movie is for you. If you hate Barbie, this movie is also for you. Well, that is a daring statement, so let's wait and see.
Catholics rock!
It's time for a quick visit to the Peculiar Bunch. This is where you can ask anything you always wanted to know about Catholics and you were afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
Well, I am here to answer all your questions, and today I want to talk about a topic that is very important right now in the Catholic Church, and it has to do with renewal.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
Now, you may be aware or not that Pope Francis has instigated a huge convention, you could say, of bishops and lay people from all over the world to talk about what he calls synodality. Synodality, in a nutshell, is this obligation that we have to listen to one another and to listen to the Holy Spirit together. This joins what I was talking about in last week's episode of The Break, where I explained that the Holy Spirit is sometimes misunderstood as this person of the Holy Trinity that speaks straight to the heart of people, that then have like a hotline with God, and whenever they feel like the Holy Spirit wants them to do something, that has to happen. And I explained that, well, that's not how the Force works. You need discernment. There is a communal discernment of what the Holy Spirit wants, and it's only once you've prayed about it together and that you respect also the hierarchical nature of the decision making in the church that you can actually be more or less confident that this is indeed where the Spirit is leading the church. However, for Pope Francis, this is extremely important to rediscover, especially because according to, if you look at how Pope Francis has preached over the last 10 years that he's been a pope, he is very critical of a church that becomes self-referential, and a church where only the top people, the people that are ordained and are part of the clerical system, get to decide what God wants or not. He says that is not acknowledging what the Second Vatican Council has stressed over and over again, is that all baptized are sharing in this common priesthood, they too have been anointed with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit works in them and through them. And so the leaders in the church have to listen to the lay people just as much as the lay people need to respect the authority of the bishops and the shepherds and the priests who work in the name of their bishops. And it's this listening to one another that can help us discover new, surprising ways in which the Spirit, who is the creator, so he's the source of all creativity, is inspiring us to recreate and renew the church. So that's what's happening on the global level. That's going to be a huge thing for the next couple of years, both the synodal process itself in Rome with the Pope and with all the bishops and the lay people, and then the aftermath of that, how, of course, that all will be implemented. Now, on a slightly more let's say close to home level, there is another process that is currently going on in quite a few parishes, and that's the parish renewal movement. This is something that has existed for a long time. Let's face it, parish renewal is nothing new. It is something that the church has been doing since the very beginning. Even in the letters of the apostles, you see that these early church communities are constantly course correcting, or they are being corrected by the apostles, or they're being corrected by councils, and they're correcting one another. So there's an ongoing transformation of the church from the very beginning, and sometimes there are blind spots, and even in the Acts of the Apostles, you see that when the apostles realize, well, wait a minute, we can't do everything. We need deacons. So we have people in the church that dedicate their life to the care of the people that live in the margins and the poor, etc. We need to institute something that can help us do that, and that continues to be the case up until this moment, and it will continue long after we are no longer there. And so any movement in the church that says this is what the church is supposed to be, this is the tradition, it's fixed now, and stop the renewal and stop the evolution, let's stay put, that is by definition not the Catholic Church, because the church has always been renovating and renewing itself. The Second Vatican Council has emphasized this. The church is always semper renovanda. Always, semper means always in Latin. It's always renewing itself. But how does that happen? There are some very good books written on this topic, and one of which is Divine Renovation by the Canadian priest, Father James Mallon. If you're a longtime listener to the show, you may remember that I mentioned him in the past. Father James Mallon was a priest like so many of us priests who worked in a parish, and, was what he calls in hindsight was doing a good job at maintenance work. We're just keeping the boat afloat. We're just doing what we've always done. And then at one point, he starts to realize, well, wait a minute, but is this really, all this activity, is this really working? And is this helping people to actually become followers and disciples of Jesus? Or are we just keeping the club alive, And from that insight, he starts to experiment with other ways of approaching the day-to-day life in parish. And the criterion becomes, and I think that's the genius of his method, is always asking yourself, is this helping people to grow closer to Jesus and to become disciples of Jesus? If so, then we should do more of it. If not, if this is just about our local community, being busy or surviving or paying the bills, but it's not leading people to this discipleship, then we're not doing the right thing, because that's what the Holy Spirit does. He makes us followers of Christ. He reminds us of what Jesus has said and what he would have done, and he helps us to act in the footsteps of Jesus. If that doesn't happen, you're not doing the right thing. And on the basis of that criterion, he starts to develop a whole method of looking critically at all these different aspects of the way parishes do their day-to-day business, and course correcting. This method has been there's a couple of other books by other authors that are kind of in the same vein, trying to propose new ways of doing things, not always to my taste. So some of them are almost proposing like an evangelical version of the Catholic Church, where as long as you have like great rock music and light effects and you present Mass as if it is a big show on MTV. Sorry about that. I realize some of you may not have been born in the age of MTV, but you know what I mean. It's like a television or a Mass is not a show. And I do agree that we can do so much more to make churches more, impactful and to improve the lighting and the setting. But if it becomes like an evangelical church, I'm out of here. It's just not for me. And I'm sure I'm speaking for many other churchgoers. But what I like about Father Mellon's proposal is it's not about the form. It's about the mindset. It's about this ongoing realization that we have to evaluate if this helps people to grow closer to Christ. And renewal starts with our renewal. It starts with me. I have to work on my relationship with God. And if I skip that step, you can try to renew as much as you want, but it will always be like an external renovation. It won't work. It won't bear fruit. So I am very much interested in this process, and I think it goes hand in hand with this whole synodal process, because there is no magic formula for this, but there is a mindset, I think, that we need to acquire. It's about thinking differently about why we are part of the church community, and asking ourselves if some people are not, and many people nowadays are not interested in becoming a part of that community. Don't blame it on those people. But look at, and don't blame yourself either. We are limited people. We have our ways. We're creatures of habit. But see it as a challenge to go and explore if there are other ways. If maybe changing your mindset and trying out new things together, and by praying the Holy Spirit to help us find those new ways. See if that will work. What we know is if we continue to do what we are currently doing, which is not working for 99% of the people, and expecting different results in the future, we are stupid. We're just dumb. We're blind. We don't want to really change. But we know that we cannot go on like this. We also know that we cannot throw away the child with the bathwater. But something has to change, and it's probably us. That's when you are a disciple of Jesus, you know that it's most of the times he's challenging his followers to change. And he's not promising like big worldwide political change or whatever. He's not going to fix the world. He empowers us so that we can fix it with him, but not without us and not without him. So I've been thinking a lot about this renewal and also about my own place in this process. What can I do to help this process? Because I believe that, I have a very limited set of experiences that may be of use in this process. And of course, it has to do with communication. I think the way in which we reach out is broken most of the time. If you look at just any parish website, there are a few exceptions, but any parish website, any diocesan type of communication, any talk by a bishop, like the other day I received a letter from the bishops that was written here in the Netherlands at the occasion of Pentecost, and I read that letter and I'm thinking, this is not the way. The contents is great. It's all very, it's pertinent and it's well researched and everything, but I read it and I don't feel the spark. I'm thinking, like in paragraph 2, they're already citing church documents, and the whole letter. It's all true. It's all good, but at the end, I'm thinking there's nothing in there that makes me enthusiastic. It's all a rehash of other people's ideas. There's no originality. There's no story. There's no real commitment. it all feels like we're going through the motions of this pastoral letter. And I cannot blame them because I've been doing that for many years in my life. But it doesn't work. It does not work. And as long as we don't acknowledge that, then we're not going to change our ways. So I think that maybe one of the things that I could do in the next couple of months or years is to help strengthen this process of renewal by focusing on how do we tell this story? How do we communicate? How can we reach young people? How can we communicate in such a way that people feel what the disciples that on their way to Emmaus felt when Jesus was walking with them? You know, didn't our hearts burn? When is the last time in church that you felt that your heart was burning? When was the last time you heard a homily or read a letter of your bishop and felt like, oh, I'm on fire? I bet you it's pretty rare that has ever happened, let alone recently. Now, I don't pretend having the solution to this, but I have learned from my own mistakes. And I've seen a couple of occasions where, you know, some forms of communication did work and continue to work. And so I want to share that experience, both of my failures and my own struggles, as well as my successes and best practices. And so I'm thinking of, and I've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now, I'm thinking of, with some other people, with the board, with Inge, maybe I should write another book. And this time it is about Parish, about communication. How do you transmit, how do you communicate your faith in a way that helps the church to renew its approach to communication? And then not write a book full of theory, but write a book of stories. Let me tell you that one time that I thought that if I would do this and this, it would be a huge success, and instead it was a failure. What did I take away from that experience? Stuff like that. I think I have, since the last time I wrote a book, which was in, when was that, 2005? It was like a century ago. And now there are so many new experiences. The world of media has changed so much since I wrote Geek Priest. It's time for another book. And so I want to do a good job with this, maybe even develop that into a course that I can invite people to follow. Maybe even create something that can, just like Father Mellon's method and some stuff that Father Barron does, it's a one-time investment of my time and energy, but it can help people for years. That's kind of what I'm currently thinking of. Let me know if that would be something that you would be interested in.
When did you become an expert in thermonuclear astrophysics?
Last night. The packet. The extraction theory papers. Am I the only one who did the reading?
Here is why every Star Wars fan that takes himself or herself seriously should read a book by Warwick Davis, who, of course, is an actor in a lot of Star Wars movies. He's been in Harry Potter. He's been the main lead in the Willow movie, the Willow television series. He is a very well-known comedian in his own country, the UK. He's been working with Ricky Gervais. He's done even like a whole series of really cheesy horror movies. And he's just a wonderful human being. I'm talking about his autobiography, Size Matters Not. I just finished reading that book the other day, and I loved it from page 1 till the last page. I don't know how many pages there are because I was listening to the audiobook version. It's such a fantastic book. It recounts his experiences in life, how he got cast as a young Ewok in Return of the Jedi, how that role of Wicket turned into his breakthrough because the actor who was supposed to play Wicket, Kenny Baker, who also played R2-D2, fell ill. And he had to step in at the very last moment. And that's how Warwick Davis, I think he was 17 years old, got to play this young Ewok. And he had been already playing a role of a background Ewok for the whole duration of the filming. He immediately stepped in, and it just worked. That whole scene where he's interacting with Leia just stole everyone's heart. And then afterwards, when they added the voice, of course, Warwick Davis didn't voice his own character. It became a phenomenal success. And then later on, George Lucas and Warwick Davis bonded on set. And later on, George Lucas approached him with this idea. Hey, I've got this idea for a fantasy movie, and I want you to be the lead character in there. And that's how he ended up playing Willow. And from there he was starred in the prequels. He got to play a minor character who is a friend of young Anakin, and then he has another background role. Also tells us how he ended up basically playing two characters in the prequels. I remember me as a fan debating online, well, who is this character also played by Warwick Davis? It has to be so important. And we didn't know, of course, that was just a background character that was invented on the spot, and there's nothing to it. But to hear how that came about, it is fascinating stuff. Now, my own personal memory of Warwick Davis it goes back to the first time that I met him in real life. And that was during the very first Star Wars celebration in Denver. I remember I was waiting in line to get into the big tent where all the big panels were being held. And the line was huge because they didn't have the system that they have now where it's basically a lottery. You just had to stand in line. So we were there standing with the other guys of the Force.net. We were waiting in line to get in several hours before the big panel started. And then all of a sudden, one of us spotted Warwick Davis with his wife and a stroller. And he pointed to us. He said, we need to ask him to talk to us. And they had been in contact with him before because it was the Force.net was the biggest Star Wars fan site in the world. And so they had met him, I think, during a convention. And so they said, hey, Warwick, come over here. And he did. And for about 45 minutes at least, we had a chat with Warwick and his wife, and they just had their firstborn child. I'm saying that's actually not exactly the case. That they were over the moon with their child, and they were, new parents. But I remember that during the conversation, at one point, maybe Warwick was talking to someone else, and then someone told me, you got to realize this is their third child. They've lost the previous two children because of the combination of their, genes. Both Warwick and his wife are little people, and it turns out that when they first became parents, their child was the bearer of two kind of clashing genetic strands or whatever. But anyway, it turns out that the child only lived a very short time, and their second child also died. So this was their third child. And I did not really get any more than that. But it made me all of a sudden so like, oh wow, I had no idea. I only thought of Warwick as this star from Return of the Jedi, now recurring star in The Phantom Menace. But wait a minute, these actors are real people, and they go through real hardship. And it's only now, so many years later, that I'm reading the whole story of those pregnancies and how they desperately hope to become parents, and then they had to go through that. And then for their third child and their fourth child, they also had these panicked moments where everything seemed to go wrong again, and then in the end, that their two children made it, and so there's a happy ending to the story. But I had no idea, and then just reading about that, it's told in such a authentic way, and that's the thing that I loved most about this book. Warwick is just a really great guy, and I still remember to this day how incredibly down to earth he was, and how approachable and you always think that, that can't last. When people are so famous and have starred in so many roles, after a while they start to, they have their handlers and they become these larger-than-life people, no pun intended. But not with Warwick Davis. He's always stayed the same. And you can also see that in the documentary about the television series Willow, that unfortunately is no longer offline. They really did it. Disney took Willow, the television series, and the making of offline. You currently cannot watch it anywhere. But I love that documentary because you can tell that Warwick, even though he's a lot older now, he's still the same guy. And the chemistry between him and these young actors that he now is shepherding into one of their first performances, not for all the actors, but some of them. He's just a great guy to work with. And then he takes he jokes about himself. So at one point during the documentary, there is a shift and it becomes almost like a parody documentary. Or mockumentary, because then he pretends to be this huge star with a huge ego, and that's actually something he has done in a television series. I think it was the one with Ricky Gervais, but I'm not certain, where he plays this over-the-top version of himself, who is the total opposite of the real Warwick Davis, and he's this super entitled, like big star, full of himself, and nobody likes him. And so I loved how they brought back that kind of like opposite character, this joke, this inside joke, into the documentary about the making of Willow. It was fantastic. I hope he's going to write a sequel because I'm sure that he will continue to star in movies, and he's got a lot more stories to tell. But just hearing all that background, what was going on in his private life while he was filming all these movies that we now know and love, why he's not in Time Bandits, something that people keep asking him, you were in Time Bandits? No, he was not in Time Bandits. However, he was in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. At least his body was, because after he played the role of the depressed robot, that character was actually voiced by Alan Rickman. They wanted to have a voice that was even more depressed than what Warwick Davis could do. So having these two great actors collaborate in creating that role for Hitchhiker's Guide of the Galaxy forced me to go back and rewatch that. But there are so many details in this book. It's so cool to read. So don't miss it. It's called Size Matters Not by Warwick Davis. Highly recommended.
We are on the cutting edge of technology.
Wow. Well, what does that mean?
Just plug it in. It's going to say, hey, I see you plugged in a new device. And it's going to load in the appropriate drivers. You'll notice that this scanner build... Whoa.
Well, all your technology stuff, it just ends in disaster.
But there is one more thing.
All right. Let's talk about one of the coolest new Lego sets that completely went under the radar, for me at least, and that is a Lego set of the NASA Mars Rover Perseverance. We all witnessed the landing. That was so harrowing. Are the parachutes going to deploy? Is this going to work? And then it all worked. And the rover was there. It's one of the most advanced like other planet rover that NASA has ever built. And the coolest thing, it had a microphone on board so it could record the sounds of Mars. That is the first time in history that we've been able to listen to sounds coming from another planet. It was one of the most impressive moments I've ever witnessed as an astronomy, space exploration fan. And it carries a helicopter. And now Lego has done a NASA set based on this Mars rover, and it looks fantastic. It is so incredibly cool. So I'm currently looking at it right now on the main page of Lego. Of course, Lego has done NASA builds in the past. There is this amazing space shuttle model, which unfortunately was a bit cost prohibitive for me, so I didn't buy it. They also did the International Space Station, and of course the big Saturn rocket, which some of my listeners actually have built. And even though it feels like a very boring build because it's just a rocket, actually they say it's a really great experience to build. Didn't get that one either. I might get this one just because it has the helicopter. I mean, how cool is that? So if you look at the first image, it does a very good, this is a technical Lego set. So it's not like most of the other big sets that they make for adults, a display set. This is also part of the fun of building this set, is that it is all technical Lego because it has a lot of moving parts, a lot of joints. So let's go through these images of the set. Here is the box and the cover art, where it looks even more impressive because they have this nice orange set of Mars in the background. And so the Mars rover itself is, of course, white, mostly, and then with some black wheels, and the helicopter is a mix of a golden brick, and then some gray and black elements. But if you see this with an orange background, it works. It has so much more impact. There's a little video. Let's play this and see what this does. Here we go. It's a 3D rendition, where you can see that actually the wheels are also built on these joints that can bend and adapt themselves to the rocky surface of Mars. So that looks pretty cool. It also has a protruding arm that, of course, is able to take these samples of Mars Earth, store it in a container, and leave it on the surface of Mars so that a future mission can go there and pick those tubes up and bring them back to Earth. That's actually what they're going to do. So this is like a grocery cart for Mars artifacts, and then a future mission hopefully will bring those modules, those tubes back to Earth so we can explore that. Nothing of that has ever been done before. And then it's got another camera on a pole that is filming all this. Here's a view from the side where you can see that the protruding arm for taking the samples with a drill built in, can also move and be rotated and can go up and down. Here's a shot where you see a bit more of the helicopter. You can also tell that all the wheels can turn independently of one another. So then, I don't know if this is probably something you have to just turn by hand. I don't think there's a steering wheel integrated in the model. And the helicopter, of course, is not flying, but it's still a very cool idea to have a Lego model of, one of the coolest things that we've ever done on another planet is flying around a helicopter. Here they show with some arrows how you can move that drill arm back and forth. Here's the back of the box where it's clearly showing that this is a technical Lego set. It's got a lot of technical elements. I'm usually not that much of a fan of technical Lego. I'm more of I like building houses and stuff. But in this case, it makes sense for this to be a technical model. And here you have some photos of the model in a real life situation. So you've got someone in the background playing with the helicopter, and you can tell that the helicopter is actually a lot bigger than it looks on the box itself. It's about the size of a hand, so it's pretty detailed. There's also another photo that shows someone with an app. And I don't know exactly what that app is. This is not a motorized rover, but maybe the app is projecting something. It looks like an AR application. You can see that it's filming the model and maybe projecting some other stuff on the floor of your kitchen or wherever you're playing around with this thing. That would be a cool thing to create Mars in your own living room thanks to an AR app. Now, the whole kit is actually surprisingly affordable when it comes to Lego sets. It is $99.99, so that would probably be also around $100 in Europe, and it's going to be available starting at August the 1st. So that's already pretty fast. I think this is going to be quite a hit for the holiday season. Here you see a top-down image of a kid playing with the Mars rover. And again, you see how big this thing is. And if you look at the size of this rover, look at the size of that thing. It's actually, I think, a pretty reasonable price. It's apparently a gift for kids age 10 plus. I'm not sure if 10-year-old kids would be excited about this, but maybe I'm just underestimating the coolness of kids today. I think this is one of the coolest sets I've seen so far. I've also done, of course, a review of the Lego Pac-Man machine, the slot machine that is on my Lego YouTube page, so you might want to check that out as well. Let me know what you think of this set and if it's something that you'd be interested in. To wrap things up, I want to briefly talk about video games. I just got the complete edition of Horizon Zero Dawn. Remember I said that I was always waiting for these big budget games for them to go down in price? Well, this was the lowest price since the launch of this really cool game. I've played it a little bit on the PlayStation 4, but I no longer have a PlayStation, so I couldn't play it anymore. I sold the disc. But now I got the PC version, and I was looking around for the cheapest Steam key because they were selling this one on sale on Steam for about a week. And I found a place where I could buy it for 11 euros. 11 euros and this is the complete edition. I cannot wait to try out this game. I have the Lego set of the long neck robot, and I bought it knowing that I first wanted to play the game before I built the Lego set. So, and then of course there's already a sequel to the Horizon Dawn game. I'll probably pick that up in a couple of years from now as well. Final topic of the day. I just read that unfortunately Google is ending support and updates for their original Chromecast. I think I have 2 of them. Maybe one of them is actually still connected. No, it's no longer necessary because my smart TV downstairs actually has a built-in Chromecast. Both of my TVs work on the Android system, so there's no need for the Chromecast. But I've used it on previous televisions. But unfortunately, the original one is no longer being supported. And that's a shame because it's a very simple pass-through type of device. And now, over time, they warn that the performance is going to degrade. So it's going to end up basically as just e-waste. And that, unfortunately, is a ongoing trend in the world of, especially of cell phones, where after a couple of years, there are no more updates. This is one of the reasons that I switched back to Apple. It's because I know that my iPad and my iPhone will continue to receive updates up to a certain point, of course. But even if there are no longer updates, like for instance my MacBook 11-inch, I still use it for my administrative tasks. And it still runs perfectly fine and it's fast. I don't notice that it is, like 12 years old. And then, of course, I have the new laptop, which is blazingly fast. But when you're just browsing a website, it doesn't feel different at all from this more than 10-year-old Mac. And the same is true for my iPhone. Even the iPhone 6 that I have, it runs an older version of iOS, but it's still perfectly usable for simple tasks. Thankfully, in the Android world, things are evolving as well. So if you buy a Pixel phone, so that's the official Android phone from Google itself, they now guarantee, I think, 5 years of updates. And so does Samsung. So thankfully, they're going from, 3-year support to 5-year support. I hope that over time, they will even try to stretch it to 10-year support. I have this Android phone that I love, and it still works so well for photos, for a lot of stuff. It's very fast, but it's from 2019. It's the Asus Zenfone 6. But it only runs Android 11. That was the last update. When I bought it, it was already a year old. So I only basically had 2 years of updates, and then it was over. No more upgrades, and it's starting to show its age, not in speed or battery power, but you cannot run a lot of the newer apps anymore because they need a newer version of Android. So I've been looking into maybe flashing the ROM and updating it with maybe Android. There is a way to put Android 13 on that phone, but it's full of bugs and you won't be able to film in 4K anymore. So I'm like, yeah, I actually really would like to try to see if I can update that old phone. But at the same time, it would break a lot of functionality that I currently enjoy. It's the ongoing conundrum of, am I going to try to upgrade and then break a lot of functionality, or am I going to keep it as is, and then it won't be a secure phone anymore because it's vulnerable. There are no more security updates for that phone. Yep, that's why I think it's important that we get tech that lasts a little bit more than 3 or 4 years. And with that, it is time to wrap up this episode of The Break. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. Again, I want to thank my patrons that support me and continue to support me and feed me with so many cool ideas. And we're going to go for another round of Dungeons & Dragons on the Discord server. So looking forward to that. I love it that thanks to the Discord server, we are able to join together with patrons from all over the world to battle dragons, and it's so cool. I also am thankful for all of you that are listening and continue to stay subscribed, even though sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. But thank you so much. Also, thank you for supporting me on my other social platforms, especially on YouTube. If you like Lego and you're not subscribed to my Lego YouTube channel yet, here's a special invitation to go and subscribe. I only need 15 more subscribers to get through that first phase in making that an official, bigger channel. You need to have 1,000 subscribers. I'm currently at 985 and then 4,000 hours of viewing. So please subscribe. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk soon. God bless. All right, all my plans to keep this within an hour, it went out of the window. This is a long show, 1 hour and 25 minutes. Oh, well, I hope you enjoyed it. Endless asks, what about recasting Luke? If you want to hear my discussion about that, you need to rewind this particular stream because I talk about it at the beginning of this show. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. Pedro says, amazing how Father hits keys without looking at the table and other times doesn't know what to press. Yeah, it's usually because I skip a segment and I'm thinking, was it the blue one for the tech jingle? Steven says, your podcast has brought joy to my life for over 10 years. I'm so happy to hear that, Steven. That's why I do this, and I'm glad to be part of your weekly routine. Hey, Peter, it's good to hear from you. I hope life is not too busy in Portugal. Make sure to reserve time for your geeky endeavors because you'll be priest for the rest of your life. But don't skip on being a geek because that's what the church needs more than ever. We need more geek priests. I am not going to play Horizon Zero Dawn on Steam Deck, although I found some tutorials on how to actually make it work quite well at 30 FPS. So there are ways to play it, but of course, graphically, it's not going to be the same as playing this on a PC. Let's see. It's funnier to hear the podcast with video. It's more interactive. Too bad I usually listen to the podcast on the car. Yeah, you don't want to watch the video while driving. But yeah, there is definitely another dimension to the video. And since I'm recording the videos, I can also chop it up later and post certain segments of the show. I'm not going to do that today because I'm hungry. I need to prepare dinner. But maybe tomorrow I'll do that. Inge doesn't want to annoy me that much because she doesn't want to be fired. Let's see what else have we got. What do I think of Conan the Barbarian? The video game or the movie? I think I watched part of the movie and I played the video game for about an hour or so. It wasn't too good. It looked a bit old-fashioned, so I haven't been playing it lately. Shugi Pop Planet also can't wait for the Barbie movie. I think it looks really intriguing. I think it's going to be very meta. Mark Hamill's more likely to appear as Luke in the Dave Filoni movie via deepfake rather than in Rey's film. You think? Oh, that's an interesting one. In the Dave Filoni movie, but why? Oh, because of course, yes, a younger Luke. Oh, I didn't think of that. Interesting. You cannot recast Luke Skywalker. Disney won't do it either. They want you to be able to watch this 100 years from now, and it feels seamless. Yes. Deadpool 3 started filming. Yeah. Hugh Jackman, Wolverine is back. Yes. We knew that since he did like a short video together with Deadpool. It was very funny. When am I coming back to Boston? I don't really have a reason to travel to Boston anytime soon, but if I find one, I will certainly do so. All right. Well, thank you so much for your input. And oh yeah, that's true. Pedro's getting ready for your priestly ordination. Only 1 month? Wow. How did that happen? Where did the last 5 months go? It's crazy. Is that going to take place? What diocese are you from again? I forgot. Is it Lisbon or somewhere else? I need to come over and join you for the ordination. That would be fun. It's not that Portugal is that far away. Am I coming to World Youth Day in Portugal? Probably not, because it's a very exhausting experience. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, maybe I should, but I haven't taken any steps to prepare for that, and I wouldn't really know what to do there other than making some vlogs. Oh, you're in Porto. That's true, in Porto, which is the awesomest city of Portugal, if you ask me. I love Porto. Yeah, we should definitely meet up. Just send me some info on Discord in DM. Let me know. Maybe I can make it work. Maybe not. Can't promise, but it would be cool. Steven, yes, you're coming to the Netherlands. That's true. I still need to answer your email. I will get in touch with you after I've eaten something, because I'm starting to get a little bit like, oh, I need food. It's already 7:00. Hey, I'm going to wrap things up. It was wonderful talking to you all. We'll talk more very soon.